All right. This is Jeff Carroll on the Sci-Fi Express Lane. I'm driving. It's early. It's dark, and I'm loving it. Right? That's how you want to get to work. You want to get to work early, even though I think I'm like 5 minutes late. It don't matter. I got a window, right? So anyway, today I want to talk about the fear of the black pen. We always talk about, I guess, gatekeepers and stuff like that, and in science fiction. And the reality is there are gatekeepers, right? Many times we think they just don't want a black writer to get put on because writing is a job and they don't want us to have a job. And that may be true, no doubt. They may not want us to be in that space. But, you know, when you look at these, and then you may say, oh, they don't want black actors to get put on film, right? They don't want a black story. You're going to get, you don't want to see black people on the screen, right? And you say, yeah, I can get that, right? And then the pushback falls back a little bit, and then you say, dang, well, shoot, they did The Woman King. That was an all-black cast. Practically had, maybe 5 white people in it, and they had Black Panther, Luke Cage, we got, quite a few other pictures, not to say, they don't count, but I'm talking about big budget. And now comes this emancipation with Will Smith, and be like, well, damn, black people definitely have slave stories. Shoot, that was one of the things I was complaining about. That every black sci-fi story I read was some black people coming out of slavery, going into slavery. Shoot, I had a story. One of the first ones I read was a black family in space that crashed on Earth and they landed in slavery. I mean, damn, that was only like 200-300 years. Okay, not even 200 years, but yet it was a dominant theme even in black science fiction. Vampire, out of slavery, you name it. We did everything with slavery, but yet we didn't get film. We didn't get these big budget ones. Our stories don't make it. You see the Amistad, you see Django, you see 12 Years a Slave, Antebellum, all of these stories, right? But none of them are written by black people. The Woman King, probably the best one, not probably, the best one of the stories, and that's not even a slavery story. That is a African rebellion story set in the time of slavery, but there's no slaves in the movie, right? And what else? Those are all the ones I could think of. But yet, all those was written by white people. So it started to make me think that they're not really scared of black writers getting writing opportunities, because we do have some black writers that have gotten writing opportunities, fantasy, space, and I can run down the names, right? Then there's also black acters in these stories. You're doing a slave story set in slavery, you definitely gonna have black actors. And then in the case of Black Panther, shoot, you got all black actors. One or two white actors. The villain Claw, and then the pilot dude. But yet, I'm wondering, well, what are they scared of? Seems like they're scared of the black writer as a story creator. They don't want black writers having their pen, setting their imaginations free on the big screen. Even with the books, you look at the books that they have, and I'm not hating on any of the writers, don't get me wrong, but it's a male-dominated genre, right? Medium. white male writers, Latino male writers, and of course black male writers, right? Not black male, black males, right? But yet, when we look at the writers that get put on, yeah, it's a gender flip, right? And maybe they think women writers will be more sensitive. Maybe they think black women writers will be more emotionally and more compassionate, and the black male writers would just come out pow, boom, pow. I don't really get into that, especially when I'm reading. I try to read what's out there, and I try to read, things that I'm attracted to, but I don't really say, oh, I'm going to read this black writer, male, this black female writer. Sheesh. When I first started, was so few black writers that you couldn't choose to be, I guess, gender specific. I read what was out there. My main influences was L.A. Banks. God bless her, R.I.P. She is like my main influence. Black female writer, and then Stephen Barnes. He's a black male writer. So I use those two, but it ain't by, I didn't decide, I'm going to pick up a male book, a black male writer and a black female writer and find inspiration from them. They just happen. And, my main granddaddy of inspiration was William Sims, and R.I.P. to him. He wrote the book Zorro. He was a one-out, black science fiction writer, but that was still probably the most powerful black science fiction book that I have read. But I think when it comes to slavery stories, probably because we've seen those, what do they imagine we will do? Nate Parker did his Birth of a Nation, and that was good. That was a good story. So, go back and read it. But, we couldn't even write our story on Harriet Tubman, and they've messed that up horribly. That's why people don't have, any trust in film. They couldn't even get a black American writer actress, because none of them wanted to be associated with something so horrific. Viola Davis and her husband had to take the script and, bless it with African spirituality that made it so good. And maybe they'll do a documentary one day on some of the things they corrected or added to the script, but we don't know. We just know that they were a major factor. We know that they were a factor, and we know that film came out better than all of the other ones. The language from the opening trailer, the captives. They didn't say slaves, because there weren't no slaves in Africa. They were war captives. But, they didn't follow any of the narratives. Some people got mad because it was about a woman king. That's because they're ignorant on history, and they don't know that women were kings, and the kings weren't always married to the queens. So it is what it is. The queen had a husband and the king had a wife. Okay, that's Africa. You know what I'm saying? It ain't European kings and queens, and their children wasn't guaranteed the thrones, and that's beautiful, right? So anyway, I think they're fearful of the black pen, right? And I say that because I know what my pen would write, right? And it's white fragility, right? You heard that term. That's not something that black people created. I think, we talk about cognitive dissonance, where you can't accept stuff and you get all confused in your head and you don't know how to move forward. Well, that happens to white people, but some, when they don't get confused, they get all guilty and they overly compensate. Let's help this Negro. They get overwhelmed with guilt, which it is what it is. If your family did something and you carried out their philosophy, and then you find out that it's wrong, you should have some guilt. That's natural. That's healthy. I don't really feel bad for white fragility. most of the people that suffer from it are Karens, and these are people that wake up. Shoot, when black people wake up, they feel a little, they feel a certain way too. They might have had been negative towards black people. They might have thought, black people they're crying, they're complaining, and when they wake up, we used to be waking them up a lot in like the 80s and the 90s, pulling them out of that confusion, and they had some residual feelings about having been so confused for a while. Oh my God, I didn't know that. Thanks for explaining, stuff to me. So anyway, I think that's normal. But, what are they afraid of? Well, I was telling a friend, if I wrote a story about the black dude that had his back whipped and he went on tour showing people that his back was whipped and showing people in an exhibition of the horrors of slavery, and you had the Solomon Northrops and the other rich black people at the time not believing them, even after they saw him, they would go up and look at his back. These are whip marks, studying it. If I was to write a story about him, I'm not telling the straight story only. That's, painful, right? And I don't know, I have more sensitivity over victims reliving their crimes, having to tell their stories on the bench, parents having to listen to the murderer tell the story of how their daughter and her sons and their loved ones were murdered, than I do having sensitivity for the parents of the murderer hearing how their child went out and killed people. I have more sensitivity towards the victim and their relatives. So when it comes to slavery stories, I'm not sensitive as much I don't feel any sensitivity for the descendants of the slave owners, right? I don't have no sensitivity towards them. But yeah, for the descendants of the enslaved, oh yes, no doubt. I have a lot of sensitivity for them because the pain, as Jewish researchers have proven, when it comes to even something as close as the Holocaust, where there's still Holocaust survivors and direct descendants that are alive, right? They say that pain goes through your DNA. So I accept that, you know what I'm saying? And so the descendants of slavery, incarceration, they harbor some of the pain in their DNA. So I'm a little bit more sensitive towards that. However, if I was to write that story, I would tell the story of dude. I would show him getting his back whipped. May have to cut away like they do in rape scenes, or at least I do. I don't show rape scenes. I infer, but I don't show it, right? But I would do that, but I would take it to the future. Almost like inspired by Candyman. I would take my story and have somebody in the modern world become possessed by this dude's ghost, and they find out who the dude was that's possessing them, and they have to give him some offerings. Maybe, here, let's catch the descendants of the people that incarcerated you, and he's taking them all out. You know what I'm saying? Maybe that's my story. Yeah, okay. He's, going back and killing people like Candyman, but I don't want to watch him getting whipped without watching somebody. I need to have more rebellion time, right? I need to have that, because I'm sensitive towards the descendants as being one, as evident with my last name. We didn't get Carroll because of jungle fever. Ain't nobody marry a Carroll and say, oh, I love you, white person from Ireland. No, they own my relatives, okay? My ancestors, they owned them, okay? So that's how we got our last name. Anyway, having that, yeah, I'm not sensitive towards that, but I am sensitive to myself, cautious about, how whatever energy in me might be stirred up. So I want to calm that down with some enslaver blood being spilled. Okay, I need to have more enslaver blood being spilled, and I think I'm not alone in that. I think a lot of black writers feel very much the same way, that when they're going to write a story, they, all these heroes and these people that come out of slavery, stories, they go back and do some damage. Like if I was to do Bill and Ted's Excellent Adventure or Bogus Adventure, whatever the heck it was called, I'm not going back to John F. Kennedy. I'm going back to Frederick Douglass, and I'm going back with a submachine gun, a turret. You know what I'm saying? I'm taking out. I'm just gonna be standing on the plantation. Shut up! You remember the in Predator where dude shot the forest up? That's what I'm doing. I'm shooting up the plantation. Yo, I'm going at it. So anyway, I just wanted to let you know a little bit of what I think is going on with these slavery writers, slave story writers, slave story movies that's coming out. Again, I think it's fear of the black pen. All right, peace.